an Adivasi scholar, and uh, I have retraced myself back into academia after 10 years of gap in the studies. So so I'm a PhD scholar, and I have worked on bonded labor previously with International Justice Mission. My research is on bonded labor, and I'm looking into that. Generally, bonded bonded laborers are people who get entrapped from the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe communities. The government data is 86%, but since I've been in the field, I know that over 90% of the people who get entrapped belong to the marginalized communities. So there is a lot of literature available on the vulnerability of people from the lower caste backgrounds getting entrapped, especially with migration from the rural regions happening to the urban regions. It is these people who get entrapped. But and that people say because of lack of education, lack of money, and all that. But I'm not looking into any of that because I feel that there is enough research done on those areas. So what I'm looking into is that we are talking about an independent country, and still in independent India, there is a lack of will to address this particular problem. Generally, people say that government is ashamed to address that it is, that bonded labor, which is synonymous with slavery, it still exists in the country. But it's not really, the lack of will is not because of the shame factor. My project is trying to show the lack of will is because there is complicity on the part of the state government to continue perpetuation, because when we are talking about government and we are talking about law enforcement, who are these people that we are talking about? We are talking about people from dominant caste communities who are in the governance, who are in the local authorities, who then don't want to address it because there is a sense of entitlement to the labor of the lower caste community, so that caste perpetuation continues. So that is largely my area of study. And since I was working in the field for 7 years, and I knew that this gap exists, and even the local organizations, they don't want to talk about it. Everybody is emphasizing that these are people from Dalit Adivasi communities, but people are not emphasizing that why isn't the infrastructure able to address or eradicate this problem, and why is this lack of will? So the emphasis is on addressing the vulnerability. So people say that Adivasis and Dalits needs to be educated, needs to be developed and all that. But I'm saying that no, you're not looking at the deliberate injury that is being caused to them, so that their labor can be extracted, their cheap labor can be extracted for the purposes of making the dominant caste richer. Being an Adivasi, I thought that this is the angle from which I see and I want to talk about, and this is why I want to do my research. It's a lived experience. So I've seen it, and I was not getting space to speak about it. In fact, every time I spoke about it, um, uh, there was repercussions, and I was adamant. So when my mom passed away in during COVID 2021, I didn't want to continue with the work. I was like, I know that I can do better, and I want to do this. So that's how I came here. And if you'd also know that when somebody is coming back to academia after 10 years, it's not easy, and especially for women, if you've been a caregiver. So for me, it was very difficult to get back into academia and the jargon of academia. And even I used to wonder if I'd be able to, and especially because I'm a first generation and an Adivasi, I've never had that kind of a network and never had that kind of an access. So it was starting from scratch. AAS is my first conference that I attended. Luckily for me, one of the panels that was being developed or proposed for AAS that was talking about caste, and it was Dana Kornberg. On Twitter, she just gave a call saying that if you are interested in caste related presentations, you can write to me and we can put a panel together. And that is how I got invited, and I went, and it was a great experience to meet people at the AS, like so many. And when I went there, I also there were so many caste panels this time. So yeah, and I didn't know that that was a unusual number. There were other people who told me that it was an unusual number this time, but for me, it was a great place to just connect with the like-minded people and mentors and friends. So yeah, so it was a lovely experience.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. I think so. You were in Seattle this year, then.
Yeah, so I was at Seattle, and I
Exactly.
met, and it's encouraging, especially for an Adivasi. It's a lonely journey. So, like I'm at SOAS, and SOAS is considered to be such an oriental place, but I am the only Adivasi here. Uh, so you can see how isolated it is. And I'm the first female Adivasi scholar in law pursuing PhD from India. I'm not talking about uh, uh, there are men. So Adivasi men, and there are a handful, even amongst men, there are a handful who have done their PhD in law. But amongst female Adivasis, there are none, which shows the kind of challenges that we face in pursuing, because it requires network, it requires resources, it requires us to be in a particular location at a particular point of time, mentors to be enabled to then pursue this journey. So it's very, very hard. So yeah, so I have a very limited network. So for me, AS was the place where I connected with a lot of people, how much ever I could, in the short time, because it was only 3 days. Some people offered to, uh, just support me by reviewing whatever I write, because I'm not even sure what I'm writing on. So yeah, so it was just a great place to build friendship. I would say that when you're abroad, things are more accessible, because suddenly, and South Asians, you are a South Asian. Once you're abroad, suddenly people start listening to you, and you get recognition. The field may be inaccessible in terms of geographical location, but you build contacts and networks and resources when you are abroad, and you have access to much more material than you'd ever have when you are in India. Like I'm at SOAS, and some of the materials related to India is not available. I have not found it in India, and I have found it at SOAS and in the British Library. So that's the advantage of doing South Asian studies for me in London. The advantages of doing it in India is that you are in the field. So then, although the resources are less, and the capability development measures are a bit less, but things are now, everything is online. So for me, the go-to place about knowing what is happening where, and if I can join in online, is through Twitter. So I keep following all these um, influential people in influential places who do online workshops and stuff like that. So that's not a barrier. But not all uh, in India may have that kind of access, and also their circumstances. Um, but the advantage for them is that they are in the field, and they can get a insider's view by connecting with the people who are in the field, which we will not get. We will all, as in living outside, we will always have to depend on a medium, whereas they are in the field and they have much better chances of connecting. When we are talking about, yeah, especially I noticed at AS, the South Asian representation was so poor. I feel that there has to be more stipend for people from South Asia to be able to participate. Traveling, I also did not have enough stipend. We get conference grants, very small, but we still get it. But for most people in South Asia, it'll be difficult. So I feel that there has to be more allocation of funds devoted for the South Asian scholars to be able to come and participate abroad. While I know that AAS also has its regional workshops, which are happening in South Asia itself. That can be popularized, but the ones that happens annually, because we are trying to create a global community, right? So it's not just restricting the regional and allowing the South Asians to only participate regionally, but allowing them to come to these international spaces. There has to be devolution of more funds, and I feel that the fund also, there has to be specific allocation of funds for people coming from the Dalit and the Adivasi communities, because otherwise they will always be left behind. I don't even need to see the lack of resources that members of these community face. So if a equal representation has to be ensured from within South Asian group also, there has to be specific allocations, like we want this many number of people coming from the there was no, I don't think there were any Adivasi members that I found at AAS. There was on caste, but there is so much to speak about on Adivasi related matters that is happening in South Asia, and people don't even know about it. So there has to be subject specific allocation of funds to ensure that such panels pick up, and there are conversations around it. There is enough funds allocated so that people can be brought from India to speak on such issues. Um, so I had a very brief stint. Right now I'm teaching, not teaching, but tutoring really, law and society in South Asia, which is you know, coordinated by Kanika Sharma, and she's the module convener with Martin Lu. So for me, that India pays very little attention to what is happening in Pakistan unless it has to do with cricket or some political upheaval. We don't know mm, anything, like very little. So I feel that when I was tutoring this law and society in South Asia, while tutoring, I have learned so much about Pakistan and the kind of problems that men, women, and children, uh, specific to their categories, face in the state, the political situations. Yeah. Before that, I have, and that's a long time before, in 2015, I was at TIS and I was supporting this course, Access to Justice to the Marginalized Students, LLM program. So there I have enjoyed doing the field work with the students. So because I was a junior faculty, I would accompany all the students to their field sites and what they were watching. And especially because that was an access to justice to marginalized program. And this is very mindful of ensuring that Dalit and Adivasi students get access. So there were all kinds of students from different backgrounds. So then supporting some of the Dalit students, their libraries, I don't know how it is in US, but in SOAS, the library closes at 11 o'clock, 11:30, and then reopens at 8. But this in Mumbai is open for 23 hours. So then I would be in the library with my students at 3 or 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, sitting and discussing the subject, then going out with them. So it was a very, very different experience as a faculty, where you no longer remain a faculty, but you become one of the collaborators of their project. So it was, yeah. So I have enjoyed fieldwork, empirical research with them as a faculty. Yeah, so I would say that as in for AS, I would my big recommendation is that there should be more funding, um, subject specific fundings, also to ensure that these topics get representation in South Asians, not just all South Asians, but specifically South Asians from marginalized communities well represented. In addition to that, my advice to the students is that they should, like, this is the advice that I got, and I'm passing it on, that they should attend conferences, not just for the sake of presenting their papers, but also for the sake of connecting with people, and not just from their own streams, but varied streams. To build friendship and relationship, because that is what you need in an isolating academic journey. We need friends who would be able to, help us think more broadly instead of just being a frog in the well and thinking about our subject, because there are so many learnings from other subjects.